All right, back with another reacting to your hot takes. I made one of these videos already. I made this a video like this earlier in the offseason, but with a little slither of offseason left. It was kind of one of my more fun offseason videos, so I figured, all right, time for a part two. Let's just get into it. Let's react to your hot takes. First, right off the bat, we have a bit of a doozy here with a double hot take, I would say. The Bengals will be third in the AFC North, and the Broncos will win the AFC West. Now, I don't agree with this necessarily, but that's part of what makes it a fun hot take. If I agreed with all of them, they probably wouldn't be that hot of takes. So first, let's start off with Cincinnati being third in the AFC North, which, to be honest, I'm not actually sure which two teams will be finishing first and second. I'm assuming the Ravens are obviously one of the teams, but I think you can make an argument for the Steelers or the Browns finishing ahead of each other, but I'm just going to go with let's assume it's the Browns, I would think. I think the assumption is Watson plays at an elite level, and Stefanski does a good job of scheming, things up for him, and they're able to have an elite offense and a potential very good defense as well. And then the Ravens also, with the new weapons, Lamar goes back to MVP form, and then their defense continues to play well, as it seemingly always does in Baltimore. And then I think the other aspect would be Cincinnati has a down year. Maybe Joe Burrow takes a step back, although I'm not betting on that necessarily, but maybe Cam Taylor-Britt isn't ready to be an everyday corner, and that weakness kind of hurts their defense, and that causes them to still have an okay season, but not be a top two team in that division. It's a tough division, and can I picture a scenario where this happens? Sure, but I kind of feel like the way I look at this is if you're running a simulation and you have 1,000 different simulations that you run, how many times do the Bengals finish third in that division compared to first? I think realistically, most often they finish first, then they finish second, and then third would be the way I view it. While there's a chance that this happens, I do think that the odds are that while there are some concerns about the Bengals, I think there's way more concerns about all of the other three teams. There's always concerns about every team. I think the Bengals have the least and probably still have the highest upside and the highest, the best star players currently, I would say, although there is a lot of talent in that division. The Broncos winning the AFC West, though, that's an interesting one to me. Again, hard to bet against Kansas City. I don't think it's crazy to think the Broncos could finish second in that division. How could they beat Kansas City? Well, again, we have seen Kansas City sometimes in the regular season sleepwalk a little bit, right? We've seen that happen where they maybe don't play as hard during certain games. Maybe they lose a game or two that they should have won. It's an option on the table. It certainly is. The other aspect, obviously, for this to happen, Russell Wilson is a top 5 quarterback again. Sean Payton schemes up these receivers so that you have this elite level offense. And, their defense was elite last year. It absolutely was. It was fantastic. So pairing those two things together, is it possible? It's certainly possible. But again, what has the higher likelihood of happening? Because I think Kansas City is pretty much going to be, a great team next year. There's a lot of ifs for the Broncos to be that great team. And then even if they are a great team, who knows who wins the division? So even if the Broncos hit their ceiling, they're still competing with the Chiefs. So for that, I think the Chiefs are easily to save money, but it's a good hot take. So I appreciate the comment. Next up is Jonathan Gannon will be a worse coach than Cliff Kingsbury. I'm wondering if this was a burner account who posted this, and it's actually my podcast co-host Kyle who put this on there because he probably agrees with you. I don't know. It's predicting head coaches is really difficult, I think, because there's so much that we don't know. So much of it is what goes on behind the scenes. But I think Jonathan Gannon's actually gotten too much criticism. I'm now a Jonathan Gannon stan, although I should say Cliff Kingsbury wasn't a mess. He managed the last several years, and again, there was a point when Kyler Murray was going to win MVP and Cliff Kingsbury was going to win Coach of the Year. They were the favorites to win both of those two awards when they were 8-0, and then things went off the rails. So, I don't know. Cliff Kingsbury isn't the worst coach to ever coach or anything. I think Gannon, I'm actually interested in a defensive coordinator who is analytic minded, which we almost never see. I'm just interested in seeing how that will go. So we'll see. Falcons win the NFC South this year, barring any significant injuries, which is a fair, asterisk to put on any of these hot takes. If significant injuries happen, obviously it doesn't, doesn't count. But the offense got better, and the defense got a lot better than it was last year. The biggest competition is the Saints, and Carr is 0-2 against the Falcons. Panthers may be a sleeper, but we'll have to see. First off, Carr being 0-2 against the Falcons, I don't think matters at all. That's not something Falcons have changed schemes frequently. I'm not paying too much attention. If he was 0-2 against the Falcons last year and that defense gave him significant trouble, okay, then maybe I'd pay more attention to it. But, I don't disagree that they have a chance. I certainly don't. To me, it's another one of those situations where, I think that there's a possibility, and you can certainly talk yourself into it. But one thing I always kind of fight back on is a lot of people view these things as, if we were 7-10 last year and then got better, doesn't that mean we're going to go 8-9 or 9-8 and be a better football team? Doesn't always work out that way. It's not an equation like that, because other teams get better and because you aren't always your record. Sometimes you were a 6-win team that happened to win 7 games kind of thing. So again, I can picture it. They certainly have a mindset. Personally, I'm not betting on Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke-led team to win that division, even if it's a weak division. And I do think that there are still some holes on that roster, like their defensive line. But yeah, there is talent on that team. And if they reach their potential, they certainly could win the NFC South. But good hot take. I do disagree with it, though. Let's go to the thumbnail one, which, I did the thumbnail of reacted and all that stuff. Gotta get the clicks somehow. It was kind of fun, I'm not going to lie. The Bills will miss the playoffs. Way tougher division, Diggs drama, shaky O-line, plus their defensive coordinator leaving. Listen, it's not that crazy of a take. I actually really like this hot take. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Bills are going to still make the playoffs. Again, quarterback matters more than anything. They still have one of the best quarterbacks in football. I know people have turned on Josh Allen now. He's still an incredible quarterback. He is. But yeah, you're absolutely right that, you're playing in a division with the Jets and Dolphins. Predicting those two teams ahead of Buffalo is not a crazy take. And, with the tough AFC, it's possible they end up with a 10-7 record, and that's not enough to get in. So, again, I'm not betting on this happening, but this could be a great hot take in a year. So we'll come back and see it then. We have two I'm going to go back to back. First, it is Justin Herbert will win MVP and take his team to the Super Bowl this year. And then the next one, Justin Herbert is the most overrated quarterback in the league and hasn't done anything to warrant the hype that he gets. So, several ends of the spectrum. I would probably be closer to agree to the first one than the second one, personally. I do think that there's, a better chance of him, being, I would say better chance of him winning MVP than just, being overrated and not being good is kind of how I personally view this. But again, is he going to win MVP and take his team to the Super Bowl? It's another hot take where it's I can picture it and see it as a possibility, but to say it's going to happen, I think would be a bit tough, because again, I do think that, guys I think there's better quarterbacks in the league than Herbert. I don't know if there's a lot of better quarterbacks in the league than Herbert. I do think there are better quarterbacks in the league than Herbert, though. So, while it's a possibility, I'm not betting on it. And for the flip side, him being overrated, I think that if you... I'm not going to say this about you personally, the person who commented this, but I think someone who doesn't pay close attention would look at Justin Herbert and say, what's the big deal? Why does everyone go crazy over him? He is someone who doesn't have particularly outstanding statistical numbers, at least box score stats wise. His advanced stats are very good, but the box score stats aren't particularly great. And while he does, have great arm talent and have great highlights, he hasn't had team success either. Only one playoff game, which they blew a big lead in that one. So, I think it's reasonable to come to the conclusion that maybe he isn't, he's a bit overhyped, but I think that the situation around him is the reason why some of that stuff hasn't been good. I've said in the past, I think he's had some of the best, passer rating of 92 games that I've seen. He, I think, does a lot to elevate an often not great situation around him. And for that reason, I would say that he is properly rated. I don't think he's underrated or overrated. I think we view him as kind of a fringe elite quarterback, which is to me where he belongs. Finally, last hot take. Who knows? Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this part 2 later on. But for now, this will be the end of the video. Bryce Young is a better prospect than Trevor Lawrence. It's interesting because I do think that Lawrence, it's a weird take to have now that Lawrence does look very good, but I do think Lawrence did get a bit overhyped coming out of college just due to there were some growing pains that it felt like he was going to have, and we felt like, okay, he'll probably work through them, but like these are the issues, and I think we saw that year one. People just sort of excuse it for being Urban Meyer, but I do think that he had some issues on his own that he's worked out and gotten better. The difference is Lawrence always had the physical tools to be one of the best quarterbacks in football. I'm not saying Bryce Young doesn't have good physical tools, because I would say he still does, but he just doesn't quite have the arm talent that Trevor Lawrence does, and because of that, I think there will always be a higher ceiling, at least more that you could talk yourself into with Lawrence than Bryce Young. But I would also say Bryce Young is probably a lot better of a pro-ready quarterback than Lawrence was coming out of college. So kind of an interesting take there. But yeah, so well, again, I don't disagree with it. I don't agree with it. I do think it's a hot take. There's a nugget of truth there. I get where you're coming from, beefy Mick what now. So good stuff there. But yeah, let me know what you think of all of this stuff in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.